And when the world tells you to shut up, speak louder. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. And maybe that's the biggest lesson of all. Because the truth is, this story isn't just about a sheriff or a slap or a school. It's about power, about fear, about how we treat each other when we think no one's watching, and how fast that changes when someone hits record. It's about the courage it takes to raise your hand when it's easier to keep your head down. It's about the fact that telling the truth, even quietly, even gently, can shake the walls of a building built to silence you. And it's about who claps when that truth gets spoken and who panics. You might never be in Jalen's shoes, but one day you might see something wrong, and when that moment comes, ask yourself, will I sit quietly or will I speak, even if my voice shakes? Because change doesn't start with noise. It starts with one voice, yours. If you made it this far, then this story meant something to you. So don't let it stop here. Share it. Talk about it. Ask questions. Listen when others speak. And most importantly, support the kids, the truth tellers, the question askers, the ones brave enough to raise their hand. The world needs more of them. And maybe one of them is watching. You ever watch a moment unfold so wrong it makes your whole body tense up? Like you're waiting for someone, anyone, to step in? That's how it started at Hillside High in Larkspur, Alabama. Not some big city. Not the kind of place that shows up on national headlines. Just a quiet southern town with a single grocery store, one traffic light, and the kind of diner where folks still ask how your mama's doing. But on one Friday morning, all that peace cracked wide open. The school gym was packed for the annual Honor and Service Assembly. It was supposed to be simple, a ceremony to recognize student leaders and first responders. Teachers were herding kids onto bleachers. Parents filled folding chairs, fanning themselves with programs that read, "Leadership starts here." The scent of pine sol mixed with syrupy cafeteria waffles hung in the air. It was loud but not chaotic, just a normal school event. Seated near the front was 15-year-old Jordan Miller, clean-pressed khakis. Navy blue shirt with a collar so stiff it could cut you. Fresh fade courtesy of his uncle Greg, who spent 45 minutes at Tommy's barbershop the night before making sure the kid looked sharp. Jordan wasn't nervous. He wasn't shy either. He was the kind of student teachers secretly wished they had 20 of. Top of his class, captain of the quiz team, quiet but precise. But that morning, his mom had hugged him a little longer than usual. "Keep your head up," she said softly. She didn't explain. She didn't have to. The principal, Mr. Halverson, tapped the microphone until it squealed, then gave the usual welcome speech. "It's our great honor to celebrate those who protect, serve, and lead. And now, please welcome Sheriff Rick Halpern." Polite applause followed, a few cheers from students whose relatives worked at the sheriff's department, and then he came striding in. Broad chest puffed out, cowboy boots echoing off the hardwood, mirrored sunglasses still on indoors. He walked like someone who expected the world to make room. The applause faded as he approached the podium. Sheriff Halpern took off his shades and leaned into the mic with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Back in my day, we respected authority. We didn't rewrite the past to make ourselves feel better." The crowd chuckled, a little unsure. Teachers shifted in their seats. Then he said it. "Some folks want to say America was built on slavery. That's just not true. It was built on grit, on hard work." Jordan blinked. At first he thought he misheard. Then he felt a familiar churn in his gut. He glanced toward the corner of the gym. Miss Cleveland, his history teacher, locked eyes with him and gave a tiny shake of the head, but it was too late. Jordan's hand was already in the air. "Excuse me, sir," he said, voice calm, steady. The room went still. You could hear sneakers squeak against the gym floor. Sheriff Halpern looked down. "Something you want to say, son?" Jordan stood his ground. "With respect, Sheriff, that statement about slavery not building America, it's not accurate. Historians and economists agree it was foundational, especially in the South." "There's a lot of documentation." Halpern interrupted. "Boy, you giving me a lecture." Jordan stayed polite. "No, sir, just clarifying." The sheriff leaned closer, his voice tightening. You calling me a liar? No, sir, just saying that what you said wasn't correct. And then it happened. A smack. The sound hit before the shock did, an open palm, right across Jordan's left cheek. His glasses flew sideways, one lens cracked, his knees buckled slightly, and he caught himself on the bleachers. The gasp from the crowd wasn't dramatic like in movies. It was raw, choppy, real. A stunned teacher dropped her clipboard. Students froze. Phones came out like they were weapons. The moment went from confusion to chaos in seconds. Sheriff Halpern turned like it was business as usual. He even brushed his hands off like he'd just fixed a loose pipe. That's what respect looks like, he muttered. And that's when the gym doors opened. A tall woman in a dark green suit stepped through, braided hair pulled tight, heels clicking like punctuation marks. No one knew who she was until the badge on her chest caught the light. Deputy Director of Homeland Security. Her name was Renee Walters. She didn't say a word, she just started clapping. Slowly. Deliberately. The sound echoed louder than the slap. Sheriff Halpern froze. She walked straight up the center aisle, flanked by 2 security officers in plain clothes. The room shifted with her, like the air itself respected her stride. When she reached the front, she looked at Jordan, then at the sheriff, then took the mic without asking. "My name is Renee Walters," she said. "I was born 2 blocks from here. I graduated from Hillside High. And I've spent the last 25 years cleaning up messes men like you leave behind." The gym fell completely silent. "You want to talk about respect?" she said, her voice like steel. "You just hit a child, in front of 500 people, for correcting a lie." She turned to Jordan. "You okay, son?" He nodded, still stunned. "You stay strong," she said. "You showed more leadership than any adult here today." And just like that, everything flipped. Phones captured it, parents cheered, some teachers cried. The moment went viral before lunch was even served. But if you think that was the end of the story, you're wrong. That slap, that single act of violence against a kid telling the truth, it didn't just go viral, it detonated a national conversation. By the time Jordan got home that afternoon, his face still warm from the sting, the video was everywhere. A freshman named Marcus had caught it from 3 rows up. Crystal clear footage, steady frame, perfect audio. The caption? Sheriff assaults student for correcting history at Hillside High. It didn't need clickbait. The truth was shocking enough. TikTok got it first, then Twitter, then Facebook, where it hit the over 40 crowd like wildfire. Local news picked it up before dinner. By 7:30 p.m., CNN was playing it in a loop next to headlines about school assemblies gone wrong. Interviews were requested. The mayor issued a vague statement about reviewing the facts. But nothing came close to what the internet did with it. And let's be clear, this wasn't one of those clean-cut viral moments. Jordan wasn't universally hailed a hero. Sure, there were people calling him brave, brilliant, a future leader, but there were just as many saying he was disrespectful, mouthy, asking for it. You didn't need to guess their politics. Their comment history told the story. That night, Jordan's mom, Vanessa, locked all the doors and turned off the porch light. They sat together in silence as headlights slowed outside their modest duplex. Someone tossed a crumpled American flag on the lawn. No note, no explanation, just a statement. Vanessa called the police. They took nearly 4 hours to show. When they did, the responding officer said, "We're doing what we can. Tensions are high." Jordan didn't cry. But he didn't sleep either. Every time a branch scraped the window, he jumped. His mother stayed awake in a chair beside his bed, scrolling through news articles with a quiet fury in her eyes. By Monday, Larkspur wasn't just split. It was bleeding. Conversations at the gas station turned tense. In the church bulletin board group chat, someone asked if raising your hand to argue was really bravery. They were met with silence, then a flood of replies, some supportive, others vicious. At Hillside High, teachers whispered. Miss Cleveland, the history teacher, showed up wearing a pin that read, "Truth Matters." She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. Meanwhile, Mr. Griggs, the PE teacher, muttered to a janitor, "That boy should have kept his mouth shut." He said it loud enough to be overheard. It didn't end well for him. The janitor, a quiet man named Raphael, calmly replied, "That boy corrected a lie. You calling that disrespectful says more about you than him." A few staff clapped. No one said a word to Raphael, not that day. The school board scrambled to control the narrative. An emergency meeting was held, packed with concerned parents, media vans parked like sharks outside the building. The superintendent read a pre-written statement. "We regret the situation that occurred. We are investigating all aspects thoroughly. No apology, no names, just the situation." But people weren't buying it. At Mason's Diner, the cook wore a t-shirt with Jordan's face on it that read, "Speak Truth." Across town, at Harlan's barber shop, the vibe was the opposite. Old-timers argued. "Kids these days don't know respect," one grumbled. But another shot back, "That sheriff's been throwing his weight around for years. Someone finally called him out." The mayor of Larkspur, Calvin Dorsey, called for calm, held a press conference outside City Hall. "We are a town built on values, on tradition," he began, but was interrupted when Vanessa Miller stepped forward from the crowd. No mic, no teleprompter, just a mother, with nothing left to lose. "My son was slapped for telling the truth," she said, voice sharp. "And you want to talk about tradition? That's your tradition?" The crowd roared. Someone shouted, "Say it louder!" And she did. Meanwhile, Sheriff Halpern stayed silent. He didn't apologize, he didn't post a statement. But he did show up at work the next day. Same boots, same swagger. He walked into the sheriff's department like nothing happened. But inside, it was different. 3 deputies had called in sick. One left his badge on the front desk with a note, "Can't be part of this." What no one knew, at least not yet, was that Renee Walters wasn't done. On Tuesday afternoon, she showed up again. This time, not in a green suit, not on stage. She walked into the city attorney's office with a team of lawyers. No cameras, no reporters, just closed doors. What she said behind them is still sealed. But by Thursday morning, a single-page statement hit the press. Sheriff Rick Halpern has been placed on unpaid administrative leave pending federal and state review. The reaction was instant. Some people cheered, some raged. But what really shifted was this. Students at Hillside began speaking up, quiet ones. Kids who never raised their hands started asking tougher questions in class. Teachers started rewriting parts of their curriculum. Miss Cleveland led a roundtable titled, "Who Writes History?" Jordan didn't plan to say much after the slap. He didn't ask to become a symbol. But when the school board held a town hall in the same gym where it all happened, his name was called. He stood, walked to the mic, and paused. "My name is Jordan Miller. I'm 15 years old, and I'm not here to cause trouble. I just asked a question. That's what school is supposed to be for, right?" The room leaned in. "I didn't disrespect anyone. I just said something true, and if telling the truth gets you slapped, maybe the problem isn't the kid speaking." Silence, then a wave of applause that started in the back row and rolled forward like a tide. He stepped down. No mic drop, no theatrics, just quiet strength. And back at home, Vanessa hugged him tight. "You didn't just speak up," she whispered. "You stood tall." He finally let himself smile. 2 weeks later, without ceremony, Sheriff Rick Halpern resigned. No press conference, no public apology, just a neatly typed letter filled with vague phrases like "distraction from my duties" and "difficult but necessary decision." And just like that, the man who slapped a student in front of a packed gym vanished from public view. But what he left behind wasn't silence. It was momentum. In a town where change had always been a distant whisper, now it rang through the halls of power like a bell someone finally dared to ring. The Larkspur School District announced a new initiative, student-led leadership councils, one in every school. Jordan Miller was named to the very first one, not because he wanted the spotlight, but because even the kids who used to ignore him now looked at him differently. Teachers reworked history lessons. Miss Cleveland started a seminar on critical thinking and civil discourse, and Principal Halverson, he retired 3 months later, replaced by, you guessed it, Sis Cleveland, Principal Cleveland now. The kind of principal who lets students ask hard questions without flinching. But none of that, none of the press coverage, policy changes, or public outrage mattered as much as what happened quietly. In the hallway outside his second period class, a kid named Kenny, quiet as a shadow, walked up to Jordan. He didn't say much, just, "Thanks for that day." Jordan blinked. "For what?" he asked. Kenny shrugged. "For showing us it's okay to speak up. I didn't know we were allowed to do that." Jordan smiled, a small, tight smile. "We always were," he said. "They just made it feel like we weren't." That line stuck with him. He wrote it down on a sticky note and slapped it on his bedroom mirror, right next to a photo of him shaking hands with Renee Walters. She came back that summer, not with cameras or a crowd, but just to walk the halls of Hillside High with Jordan. She wore jeans, sneakers, no badge in sight. "You changed this place," she told him. "I didn't mean to," he replied. She laughed. "That's usually how the best change happens." Before she left, she handed him a dog-eared copy of James Baldwin's The Fire Next Time, underlined passages, margin notes, the kind of book that felt lived in. "Keep reading," she said. "Keep asking, and when the world tells you to shut up, speak louder." Jordan didn't say anything back. He didn't need to. Sometimes silence is the loudest response of all, because the truth is this story was never just about a slap, or a sheriff, or a viral video. It was about power. Who has it, who abuses it, and who finally dares to question it. It was about fear and what happens when someone too young to be jaded stands up and speaks, with clarity in a room designed to ignore him. It was about what happens in those quiet moments when you raise your hand and the air goes still, and everyone waits to see whether you'll flinch. And it was about who claps when you don't, and who panics. Jordan still struggles sometimes. He flinches if someone raises their voice too fast. He asks his mom before replying to media requests. "Am I doing too much?" he asked her one night, watching the sunset from their porch. Vanessa put her tea down and looked at him. "You didn't do anything wrong," she said. "You showed something right. There's a difference." He nodded slowly, letting her words settle into the quiet between them. The town gave him a certificate, a scholarship funded by anonymous donors, and even tried to name a library wing after him. But none of it meant as much as what came next, the change in the people around him. At the next school forum, the first topic was, what does respect really look like? Jordan sat in the front row, not as a guest, not as a symbol, but as a student with something to say. Not everyone agreed, not everyone applauded, but everyone listened. And that, in a town like Larkspur, was new. When Donna Marks, the new sheriff, was sworn in a month later, the mood was cautious but hopeful. A black woman with a background in civil rights investigations and a spine made of steel. Sheriff Marks was the first of her kind in the county. Her first public statement was simple. No badge should make you forget how to treat people, and no child should ever be afraid to tell the truth. Back at Hillside High, the cafeteria noise was the same, the lockers still slammed shut too loud, and the textbooks were still outdated, but something was different. Students spoke more freely, teachers asked better questions. The weight of silence had lifted. It wasn't a revolution, but it was a crack in the wall. And sometimes, that's all it takes for light to get in. The world moved on, like it always does. The hashtags faded, the headlines disappeared, and the video became another digital fossil buried beneath the next trending story. But for the kids at Hillside, especially the quiet ones who used to keep their hands in their laps, something had changed permanently. They understood, maybe for the first time, that their voices mattered, that truth doesn't need to be shouted to be heard. It just needs to be said. And if you've made it this far, then maybe you needed to hear that too. Maybe you're wondering if you would have raised your hand that day, or stayed quiet, or looked away. Maybe you're thinking about the last time you saw something wrong and stayed silent because it was easier. And maybe, just maybe, you'll decide next time to speak up, even if your voice shakes, because courage doesn't start with noise. It starts with one voice, yours. So don't let this story stop here. Share it, talk about it, ask better questions, listen harder, and most of all, back the kids who tell the truth, the quiet ones, the brave ones, the ones who raise their hand when everyone else keeps theirs down. The world needs more of them, and maybe, just maybe, one of them is watching right now.